Happy Friday, HIPS teams. Hope everybody can hear me all right. We are recording this presentation, which is our November workshop for our HIPS implementation faculty. I say presentation, but it really isn't. What this is today is us giving a little bit of information to get you started, and then to ask what you are thinking and how your plans are going. So this will be mostly a set of breakout sessions and feedback from you and discussion. Now, I think that we have a good chunk of our folks that are going to be here with us today. So if everybody is ready, I will go ahead and begin. So Bruce, let's go to that next slide here. Okay, thanks. Your presenters today, first of all, me, Robert Todd, Assistant Vice Chancellor of Student Success and Completion. We'll hear today from Peter Berryman, the Director of Faculty Development for Digital Instruction, Denise Demese, Director for Faculty Development, Jeff Galley, Associate Vice Chancellor for Faculty Development, and Bruce Van Dahl, the Principal of Bruce Van Dahl Consulting. A quick reminder to everybody before we turn it over to you and let you talk and work with each other and with us. I want to remind everyone of the overall picture of what we're doing. I thank all of you who have put your time and energy into being a part of our HIPS work. Many of you since last January. Some of you came aboard in September with us. I want to thank you all for that work, and just a quick reminder of what it is we're doing and where we're going to give us the kind of the container in the momentum effort as a whole. What our ultimate goals here are scaling for Georgia with quality assurance that leads to good course design and good course delivery, powerful student experience, report on what we've done so that we know what we've done and we can share it, and then assessment of that so we can really review it. And those are the tools that related to the tools that we've discussed so far this fall, and also the plans that we are working on at the moment with you and your campuses to help us make this a reality at scale. Next slide, if you would, Bruce. So overall, what we're really looking at, I think today, is what is your current status on HIPS and what are the next steps? This workshop has been intended to be able to give you a chance to speak back. We've done a lot of didactic material, October 1st, October 15th, and in many of the previous workshops. So we're going to focus that today on 3 separate breakout sessions. One will be a feedback on the HIPS online course. We're really focused on the content. We realize that there's still some spelling, grammar bits that need to be in there. We appreciate your feedback on those because it's always great to have more editorial help. We're really focused today on the content of the course and what you can share there and your thoughts. We're going to brainstorm elements of your HIPS implementation plan. So how is it you're actually doing this on your campus, working as the champions on each one of your campuses and with your institutions? And what additional support and tools are needed? That'll be our last breakout. What do we need to actually work with you to help get these plans that are going to be provided at the end of this semester, and then at the end of spring, the next step in them, kind of the 2.0, what's actually been workable. I would like to say that we'll take at those times questions on the tools per se. So you can hold some of those if it's a very specific question about online tools. But we definitely want to hear what it is that you have to say at that breakout. December 3rd report is where we're going to hear back from you. This is sort of the deliverable for the work. And we don't have a template for this because we know it's going to be different on every campus. But what we're looking at is your plans for how you will do the work that we've discussed in the last couple of workshops. So Bruce, if you can go to the next slide, I can remind everyone what that's really all about. What, of course, we hope to do is broaden awareness of HIPS among the faculty at all the institutions. So your provost really felt, and your leaders, that you guys, your teams are some of the best folks to do this on your campus. And of course, you'll figure out the ways to do that. We hope to be able to help you do that, but you'll probably know where there are opportunities to broaden that awareness at your own institution better than somebody here in Atlanta could necessarily do. Develop and implement a system for identifying and qualifying and capturing HIPs and banner. That's our course attribute dashboard, but we realize that's not, as you've heard us say before, that's not implemented on your campuses yet. Is being implemented on many campuses in the fall and will be with many more in the spring. So we want to move toward that course attribute dashboard to give us more consistent and better data. But in the meantime, in your plans, how can you work with the existing method, whether it's just been direct contact with the registrar's office with emails or Excel sheets or other types of communication? How can we work better to get people prepared for the course attribute dashboard, to know that it's coming and there will be a more powerful way of doing this, but also transition yourselves so that you don't try to implement something that's just not ready in your institution yet. And we want to hear from you on that report, how you feel that could be done with faculty and how we could begin working with faculty on the campus and how you can communicate with them. And developing plans for expanding equitable access and participation in the prioritized HIPs. We've given you some information on which ones those are before. You may have other HIPs that are important to your institution, but we can go back to those as a refresher if you need it before the end of the semester. Bruce, can you go to the next slide? And we're going to look at that. I'm sorry. Thought I heard someone there asking a question. We're going to look for this initial report that we will review in December on what are the processes and what tools are available that you feel in your campus to help access resources that help faculty understand HIPs. Those 8 elements, for example, the short course that you have been reviewing, hopefully, if you have not completed it yet, you will have it completed soon. A quick digression, it looks like about half of you have done the bronze badging, and I want to thank you for going forward and making that happen, which would be the first review of the course. And some of you have gone on to the silver level already, which is a wonderful thing. But if you haven't done that initial review of the online course, then we'll be talking about that in the breakout. Please go ahead and have that completed ASAP, because that's one of the most important features of our work this semester. But how can we deepen that understanding? And that course is one of the tools. It's not the only way to do that on your campus. You have ways of communicating as well. And how can you help build capacity for folks on your own campus? It could be existing learning communities, it might be new learning communities. It might be other opportunities that you see, upcoming conferences, upcoming meetings within your own department or outside your department. Want to hear what your thoughts are on that. And qualifying courses in the banner system. That would be for new courses in particular, what really is a HIP, and that short course certainly helps do that. And the work that we've done in previous workshops available on our YouTube channel can help you help others figure out what is really a good HIP. But I know there have been some questions, how do we do that with folks if we don't have all the answers yet? Well, we're really counting on you as the champions on your campus and in your institutions to help do that, because we realize that change is going to have to come from your campuses to be a long-standing change. We do realize that you won't necessarily know everything about what is, in all cases, a perfect high impact practice and what is not. But the short course will give a lot of that information in our previous workshops. We won't try to cover that again today, of what really does make a good HIP. The reason why I want to repeat this, that we left that decision with your institutions, is that institutions had a lot of, across the 26, a lot of different needs for their high impact practices. And so after 3 years of our Illumina National Association of System Heads work, we heard that feedback that said we need to be able to have some control over what is considered a HIP. So that rests with the institution, but we do believe that the education that we're all sharing, especially your team sharing it out further to faculty and helping us spread the word, will make for better HIPs that are more consistent and use more consistent definitions. So in terms of meeting quality requirements, that online short course, I think, is one of the most important tools at the moment. 2, developing that plan to extend and access participation of HIPs. As I said, we realize that you, from your position, will have a different view of that than we would have coming outside. So we want to hear what your plan is. It's a draft plan, something that we want to see by December 3rd so that we can make it a part of our momentum report and your institution's momentum feedback. It's a part of that whole initiative. But we understand it is the first attempt at this, and you don't have to see this as any kind of a test of how far you've gone. It's really what is useful to you and what helps us understand what works on your institution. Next slide, Bruce. I'm coming up on time here, so I'll talk fast. And after completing that short course, I want to remind you that a good step that we think would work for most of you would be working with your registrar's office to see how can we do a better job with these coding these course sections. If nothing else, starting that conversation that you may or may not have had, and it could go through your department head. In many cases, you will want to go through your department head to do that. But the registrars are also being trained on the course attribute dashboard at the same time we're doing this. And they're hearing about it, they're learning how it works, and they're looking at the nuts and bolts. So it would be a good time for you to go ahead and begin contacting with them, begin a discussion. A lot of faculty don't spend a lot of time working with their registrar's office except to report on the attributes. So we're hoping that you can start a conversation that will help slide us into the use of the course attribute dashboard when you definitely will have faculty giving their suggestions on what are the appropriate attributes and going through that review process of the attributes that then is finally stamped by the registrar's office at the end. So make that a part of your plan, and we understand that's not going to probably be the finished plan. We'll work on it again in the spring. Bruce, next slide. So again, you've seen all of this actually, but looking at how you can enroll faculty to spread the word. We want more faculty taking the short course, either in your department, other folks that are working on HIPs. Some of them will have previous courses that are already HIPs outstanding. They're not trying to review a new HIP. They could still use that online short course material to review their older HIP that is currently in place. And they will hopefully find ways to improve it, or at the very least, they may look at it and say, yes, I hit all of the buttons here. I hit all of the key elements, the 8 key elements, or I need to focus more on an element, a certain element. And I think that would be useful for folks who have ongoing HIPs to go ahead and review them. Set a target. We'd like to see at least a target, whether it's one you can hold to or whether it at the moment is just your best guess on how you could get folks to participate in the short course and increase the number of course sections through spring. This will be necessarily a little bit like a crystal ball, probably, but we want to hear what your best ideas and thoughts are on that. And one way to operationalize this that we are hearing is identify specific faculty in a college or department that you believe is probably the low-hanging fruit, the folks that really might be interested in this and ready to move along. So we know you'll know that better than we do on each individual campus. And of course, at the end, that December 3rd plan we want to share with the provosts and with us. Next slide, Bruce. There you go. There's our agenda for today. So I tried to stay within time. I was pretty close. I hope that it helps answer a couple of the questions that came in recently on how do you treat previous HIPs that are already in existence, and how are we going to help people with attributes if they don't understand it all. I think working with the tools we have now and with our previous workshops has hopefully helped present an opportunity for you as the leaders on campus to begin reaching out to others and helping them answer those questions. And in cases where they don't, we're going to have our contact information at the end of this presentation. With that said, I would like to move on to Peter Berryman, who is our Director of Faculty Development for Digital Instruction, and let Peter take it away and get us ready for one of those breakouts I promised.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for participating in the beta test of our Elements of High Impact Practices course. We've had a lot of activity. I think, as Robert mentioned, about 50% of everyone enrolled has completed the bronze level badging, and about 10% have completed the silver level badging, and really appreciate your feedback in the course. Received approximately, I'd say, 100 suggestions, individual suggestions for improvement, anywhere from issues with quiz questions maybe not being aligned with content, to consistency of punctuation, typographic errors, all of that. All of it is very much appreciated so much. I'd like to share with you some of the responses to the feedback. But before I do that, I just want to frame that the course itself was not written specifically for this initiative or group. It was written for the more than 12,000 faculty across USG institutions to begin and introduce HIPS and specifically their elements. The course is asynchronous, it's self-paced, and there's no facilitator present. So that imposes some constraints on some of the instruction that we can do in the course. We see it mostly as a resource rather than an actual course experience where you pass or fail. In any event, based on the feedback received, there was some confusion about the focus of the course. Some of the verbiage, even the title of the course, was changed to put the focus on the key elements rather than the practices. We have decided to seek and find a dedicated copy editor, and also to create a Momentum U USG style guide so that we have consistent formatting and much fewer typographic issues within the course itself. We're going to develop an element by element reflection activity during the foundation knowledge level content. The quiz needs attention and redesign. Use Q&A feedback to deepen learners' understanding of the module content. We need to update and provide additional examples for the application of the HIPS elements. We're going to support the technology a little bit better with some how-to videos. And also, just to bring this to your attention, looking at supporting the delivery of the short courses, including this one, in blended formats. And we have a pilot program starting hopefully in the spring with Augusta University. I don't have a lot of information about that, but essentially the cohort will go through each of the modules and then meet either online or face-to-face to discuss what they've learned and their progress with the application of the elements in their classrooms. Let's go on to the next slide. Thank you so much. So when you think about how does this course fit into your initiative and what you're trying to accomplish here, the people completing the course will have demonstrated the ability to remember and understand the HIPS elements, and then go through the process of practicing, applying one or more of those elements in a classroom situation to demonstrate their understanding, the ability to apply, and then to analyze the effectiveness or application. It's really meant to be practice. And again, the issue here is this is an asynchronous, self-paced learning environment with no facilitator. And that's why, for one example, we think that maybe a blended use of the course in some situations may be very helpful. Okay, I think we're moving on to the discussion activity. Is that correct? Okay, so based on your experience in the course and as much of the content as you've consumed, and the purpose and goals of the course for faculty to practice using the elements that support HIPS practices, how could you use the HIPS short course to encourage the development and delivery of more high quality, high impact practices in courses at your institution.
So I'm going to send you all to breakout rooms. Now, remember, the whole purpose of this big meeting is to give you all an opportunity to talk and share and brainstorm ideas together. So when you get into your breakout room, consider choosing a spokesperson that can report back, because at the end of 13 minutes, we're going to come back and share some of the things that you've discussed, some of your ideas, so that everyone can benefit. And we'll either do that by coming off mute or going in the chat. So I will go ahead and send you all off to your breakout rooms, and we'll see you in 13 minutes.
Ready to begin? Okay, great. Welcome back, everyone. My understanding is we had 8 groups. Our discussion question is, how can we use the Elements short course to encourage the development and delivery of more high quality, high impact practices in courses at your institution? We have, each group should have a spokesperson. If somebody would like to unmute themselves and begin and speak to that question, or if you'd like to use the chat, we can do that as well.
I don't mind going first.
Okay,
Hi,
thanks,
Peter.
Angela.
My name is Angela Crisco. I'm at Georgia College and State University. And the folks that we had in our group, we had folks from Georgia Southern, Dalton State, University of West Georgia, and of course, Georgia College. And we are all in various different phases of this implementation. And we all agree that the course is very well developed, and it would be a great first step to help us inform our faculty and staff that this is what we're trying to do. This is what a high impact practice is all about. And it would be the first, a great first step. And then I think it was Allison at University of West Georgia was saying that they were creating a second course that would be a little more specific. So as faculty were understanding what a high impact practice would be, they would take this first course, and then they would have another course that they would take at University of West Georgia.
Right, and good point too. We are beginning the process of creating 4 courses on 4 of the practices. So we have not yet begun that process. We're just starting to identify the authors, and those courses we hope to be able to open and deliver the content late spring 2022. But for just 4 of those 11 practices, which I think is FYE, service learning, undergraduate research, and the work study, the internship. So did you find that though, is there a gap between the objectives and how people finish this course and where you need to begin, and how do you fill in that gap?
I think that's a great question. And if there are other folks on
Sure.
The group that I was in want to jump in, but I think we're all in various different phases that some of us are just trying to figure out, where do we go next? I know Georgia College is much further along than other universities, which is exciting, because when I first started this group last year, it was like, I already know this stuff. So I need to, but this has been nice to kind of hear from other universities to be able to help and provide context of what we're doing and provide that support. But I know that there's some people in our group that said, we are just getting ready to have a 1-hour seminar to let people know what is a HIP.
Okay.
And so, we have people that are in the very first stages, and the course itself might be a little overwhelming as they're trying to figure out what their role is as a part of the implementation team.
Okay, great, thank you. Is someone else?
I'm glad to share from our group. I'm Lara Smith-Sitton. I'm at Kennesaw State. So I think that we as a group felt that the video was informative and provided a really good foundation or initial foundation about what high impact practices are and what they can do and how pedagogically they're impactful for students. Where we saw an opportunity to consider is number one, emphasizing the understanding that there are institutional requirements, right, that faculty need to understand. So now that they have this high impact practice foundational work, understanding that it could be different at their institution as to how courses are certified or the resources available. Another point was also even more examples, helping faculty really see it, not just hear about it. I mean, I think we all felt that it did a great job introducing high impact practices. And I know that at Kennesaw, that is a question that I get a lot. Even though we've done a great job, I think, trying to get the word out, people are still trying to figure out what is a high impact practice. So let me also say too, they also commented on, focusing a little bit on the question they just put in the chat is like how you're actually going to incentivize faculty to do this is really still that question, right? And maybe some of that comes from looking at I hate to say this, but like, tying it a little bit to student success, tying that to some of the initiatives that are coming out, or explaining how by doing this, what the value would be as faculty members beyond just exceptional teaching, right? I think we were just thinking that was something, maybe also some, examples and additional articles. Those are just food for thought, whether it's in this one or whether it's in a subsequent one.
Right.
And if I missed something, if someone else in my group would please share, but we did find it to be a very good foundational introduction to high impact practices.
So just quickly about examples, something I hope comes from the beta test and the reflection survey is perhaps there's an opportunity to pull examples from here across USG out of that survey to actually use in the course itself. So that's something that may come from this beta test, some additional examples.
Sounds great.
Anyone else?
I can speak for group 2, unless somebody else wanted to. We had a good discussion. Peter, thank you you answered one of our questions, because we, with mentioning that there are other courses coming out to explain the HIPs themselves, because that was one of our guiding questions at the University of North Georgia was, as we went into taking this short course, we were asking, okay, would faculty be prepared to code at the end of this course? And we thought that they would be prepared to understand the elements without a doubt, but we did not know that they would be prepared to identify an internship, and maybe not an internship that where all the student does is go and get coffee. And so we want to make sure that they understand those differences before they code those. But having future courses that could be beneficial. So that was one of the things we talked about. Also had discussions about grammar and the alignment of the assessment, as well as a brief discussion about concerns over the legality in terms of work-based learning and insurance and that type of thing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone. I think we need to close this out and move on to the next breakout session. But still, if you have comments, if you could take a moment and add them briefly to the chat, that would be appreciated so much.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, so our next question, and some of you started to touch on this in the previous question, which is great. So thinking forward, what other things can you do as with the HIPS implementation team to increase the number and quality of HIPS offerings at your institution? So this is starting to make a plan, like how can you increase the quality and increase the number of HIPS at your institution? So I'm going to keep the same breakout rooms because that way you won't have to sort of get acquainted with each other again. And also claps for all of you who did not disappear. I don't think anyone disappeared, and that's unheard of. So you guys are all superstars. Okay, I'm going to open up the rooms, and again, you're going to have about 13 minutes. Couple more seconds. Okay, I think everyone is back. So this brainstorm was kind of your next steps. What can you do to increase the quality and number of hips at your institution? So who would be willing to share what their group talked about? You could unmute or you could put them in the chat.
I'll be glad to. I'm Joey Hain from Clayton State. And please, if I don't summarize this well, because we didn't officially come up with a speaker, but we just sort of tried to discuss this. And so we talked about that we think there needs to be some more introduction broadly about what a HIP is, so that, or HIPs are, get the grammar correct, for faculty to be willing to pursue and understand and really get the context of where this is all coming from versus just jumping into the short course. And then there's ways, it was, I believe is Middle Georgia is doing a HIPS website, and trying to pull together a HIPS website that would be part of the academic affairs. And it would allow folks to go in and click on different types of the different HIPs, and it would give them examples. They're trying to come up with an infographic, so there'd be links to examples of what things are being done. We have folks looking at already how to implement e-portfolios or already implemented e-portfolios, so that activities are there and bringing that visibility so that they are getting that acknowledgement and it's being tracked correctly. There seems to be a pretty common issue that having multiple sections of a class are taught differently because of academic freedom. And at larger universities, Georgia Tech was an example, that the registrar is not going to be able to record HIP activities at a section level. And so those courses have to be identified as a HIP course and taught standardized across. And in some courses at other universities, that's probably not going to happen because there's they don't have established common HIP practices among the different sections. So there's a lot of conversation that still has to take place, but the conversation is starting. And it's how can that all be identified and then validated. So really looking at the beginning is trying to pick the low-hanging fruit and be successful there, so it's well documented and the conversation start and then people see how it's being presented. There was also some conversation about how this could be translated to the very volatile conversation around student success, and how these are demonstrated areas of success, of focusing on student success, but perhaps now is not the time to tie the two together so that it doesn't put any type of angst to the HIP process, although the HIP process does help meet those student success requirements. So there's, I think we had a very dynamic conversation around a lot of topics, and everyone seems very positive about moving forward. We're just acknowledging there's some challenges and acknowledging some of the challenges or how you start to overcome them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's great. It's there.
May I say something?
Please do.
Dr. Han, is reasons like meet people like you and listen to in the presentations that make us stay here 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, because my college closes at 12. Let me just make a statement. We will improve HIPs, one HIP, let me put this way, at the time. And also we need to consider that institutions are different. We are not UJ, we are not Georgia Tech. Some of us teach, this semester I'm teaching 17 credits. My passion for undergraduate research research symposium. Bernard and my other colleague, my husband, Dr. Robert Port. So that reasons that maybe perhaps we came from a big institution. And the reason is our goal and inspiration that we can have students from a small college, say, Dr. Guedes, I am in the veterinary program, I am at Mercer University, because some people has idealism and try to do that. So that's what is our goal. Institutions are different. Some of us sometimes have to get the DR and get the pizza, but people like you that I'm sure love your students. That's why I'm happy to participate in this group. And I'm gonna be quiet because sometimes I speak too much. Part
Oh,
of being Latina.
Thank you for that. And I think it's a good point. And that's why we love to have you talk in these groups across sectors, because we don't want you to compare and we don't want you to think, well, I can't do that because I'm not UGA or Georgia Tech, but rather to get some ideas flowing for what is possible at your institutions, because each one is different, and you don't have to be UGA or Georgia Tech to make a real difference with HIPs. Bruce, how about we throw up the third slide there for the third question, and I will hand this off to Jeff. Thanks all of you for sharing, and we're reading your comments in the chat there too.
Okay, are we still here all together?
Yes.
Okay, so we've covered specifics of HIPs and enriching them, but we know that we've only set a narrow perimeter around the larger issues. So open-ended question, what more are you aware of, or you would like to talk with others about, that you would need from us or from your institution to do this, to expand the number of high-quality HIPs? When you return from the final breakout, we'll talk about the other, what we haven't mentioned, what we haven't included.
All right, and we put that in the chat so that if you go to your breakout room and you say, wait, what are we supposed to talk about? It's there in the chat. So off you go. All back, yep.
Okay, well, welcome out of break room 3 and happy Friday afternoon. We're almost there. So with this third question in mind, what more do you need, or do you envision is needed to fulfill your plan and to ensure that higher and greater numbers of HIPs would be in your institution? So does anyone want to unmic and unmute and talk for a second about what was discussed in your breakout?
I'll go from our group. We would like to see the things that people are already doing that are HIPs celebrated. There needs to be a close-in gap in the knowledge between what the admins think is a HIP and what the faculty thinks is a HIP, and work together on that one. And again, highlight what we've already been doing, showcase what's already been done, like Middle Georgia's doing, like a resource page, and what other people are doing to make it less intimidating. And of course, some other incentives are always time and or money to do those HIPs.
Yeah, excellent. A resource page, exemplars, examples of excellent HIPs, celebrate what is already being done well, conversations that bring people together to develop some kind of consensus. I'm seeing some comments in the chat. Does someone else want to unmute and talk live? Support from administration. What does that mean? What the heck are we talking about there? One of the things that I noticed that might be anticipated is talking with provost offices about the work that is going on right here. They've been brought in the loop with this effort. Is enough being communicated to the provosts or to the associate provosts or the deans?
Well, Our group talked a little bit about that. And it was really a discussion. It was a positive discussion. It wasn't really a complaining discussion. It was more admin support first at the university level, and that admin support kind of coming in to make the efforts count. Does that make sense? And I mean, count in multiple ways, not just, but it was a recognition and showcasing really good projects and faculty and students doing really good work, but also too helping faculty see how it fits in and that it does matter in things like P&T and annual review documents, like how that counts. And so I think that was something that we talked about. And also too, having that university administration really be out there valuing it and articulating the value of it, not just saying, oh, good job. And then I think the other thing that we talked about was in some ways some on the ground more support to be able to do it. And that might come more at the USG level than the university level. And that might be things like making sure that websites can be built out with those resources that can be culled and put together, and not just that it's a good idea, but maybe figuring out ways that USG can really say, this is a super important initiative to us, and these are the resources that can be provided to make sure your website can get built out in this way with expertise on high impact practices and support from that at multiple levels. So I think there was a real recognition that most of the support, institutional support or admin support, needed to be localized within individual institutions, but then a partnering at the USG level for administrators to be able to give that support.
Excellent. Well said, and very important. Taking notes, and I see the chat, spot on. Other comments?
Jeff, could I put in a David Newton here? Could I put in a plug for Leap State, Georgia?
Please.
I'm gonna put the website link in the chat. But Leap State, Georgia is our USG consortium of schools, people, and just folks who are interested in LEAP, which is AAC&U's umbrella kind of framework for high impact practices, among other things. And we've had this in place for a number of years now. Every school in the state, every USG has representatives to the USG steering committee, to the LEAP State steering committee. And I'm going to put that link in the chat as well, in case you want to see who your representatives are on your campus. And I'm sure maybe some of you are, but I mentioned that there's also a listserv that you can sign up to. I mentioned that because I know sometimes might feel just you're the only person doing this work on your campus, or you don't have other folks to talk to. And what I found really valuable about LSG and being involved is you really get to talk to a lot of other people who are kind of interested in this work and trying to figure it out. So a great way to kind of network and share with others about the work that's going on. And Leap State Georgia has really been working behind the scenes to try to support some of this work that's being done by the USG in partnership. So happy to just want to share that. Jordan Kofer at Georgia College is the current president, but we have officers that are kind of involved in trying to organize that work. So just want to say a plug for that. Another great place to kind of
David, fantastic question for the others to hear the answer to. So this Leap State Georgia WordPress document or website has emails and a place for others here to connect and ask questions. Fantastic.
And there's a listserv they can sign up for. It's through the USG, it's through University of Georgia, but we send out information. We don't, it's not every day, but periodically, every month or so, we'll send out updates and information on stuff related to high impact practices and the work that's going on across the state.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That's
Thank you.
perfect.
I have a question.
Yes.
With regards like funding all of this throughout the system, how much, has the system thought about how much it will cost to implement these HIPs? I mean, and from the point of view of not human resources, because we have the human resources, but, like dedicating every year X amount of dollars for each institution to go and go ahead and have the HIPS team at each institution to design how this dedicated funding will be spent or something in that regards.
Alfredo, that's a fantastic question. The funding issue, in the end, that becomes the big question. So I know at the USG office, there are lots of debates on how to use the sponsored account funds that we have, and there's a constant push, ask Robert Todd, to continue to generate more funding. But the discussion needs to include not only the people at the office, but also representatives from the institutions too, so that required funding can be established. Totally agree. All right, I need to stop my part here because we need to close. Y'all have been here for an hour and a half. It's getting to mid-afternoon. I'm going to turn it back over to Robert Todd.
So thank you very much, Jeff. And with response to two of those last questions, one, funding, yes, that is very much on our minds at all times. And it's also a part of the annual budget review when the provost and the provost team comes up to the USG office and provides their presentation for what they need and how they're going to move forward with this whole momentum package and their other institution needs. So we can hear it there as well as from you on. And so it comes from that administrative level. And we also need to hear from you what you need. There was I think, was it Charles Grimm who made a comment that I just want to point out, and Leap Georgia, I want to throw into this. Leap Georgia has wonderful resources, and David, you can put them on here that you can use to connect to others who are probably that low-hanging fruit to talk to on your campus if you don't know them all. Also, I think it was Charles Grimm who made the comment that in terms of showcasing your work, it may be the USG Teaching and Learning Conference. Denise can answer that in the future. May be a good place to do that. Also, I promise you, we are going to have a dedicated track, not just a presentation at the Momentum Summit coming up this spring semester. And so I am going to be hoping you all come forward and say to me, I'd love to present there. I'd love to say what we're doing. I'd love to get the word out, because that's one of those places. Last year, we had 900 participants in the online version of the Momentum Summit. So you can imagine how powerful that reach is, not just for administrators, but for faculty to hear and staff. So I will wrap us up here by letting you know, because we've kept you pretty late today, that this has been an extraordinary experience being able to hear from you, especially with so many of you here, and get these suggestions, comments, questions about how we move forward. I want you to know a couple things. One, we're going to take this recording and edit it to its proper, state, and that will also be placed up on our typical YouTube channel for those who haven't been able to be a part of it. It doesn't capture the breakouts, but it captures the material we're all sharing together. And I'll get that URL to you. Takes a day, takes a little bit of time usually to render the things. It's kind of large, but I'll get it up there. But in addition, some of you may be saying, well, what next? Well, I made a bunch of reference to December 3rd. We're coming up to the end of the semester here. We all know this, the holidays. We respect your time. Some of you have said that you're working to get that time in to take the online course. That's very critical for you to do that. So we respect your time. We're not going to pull you into another workshop at the moment. But we're going to take this material, meet together, and look at how we need to make any final contacts for this semester that could help you out and perhaps give you a chance to do some further Q&A. That will be forthcoming very soon. But I want to thank you for being just generous with your time and your effort to get us working on this. This is going to be a sea change for the USG. We're doing this at scale. That's why I referred it back to the Momentum Initiative. It's one of those critical issues for momentum, and we're going to keep moving until we get these components working at scale, and can't be done without your help and you making it work on your campuses. With that, I think I'd like to say thanks a lot to all.